Another one of our firefighters, she started her career with the city, Amanda Stevenson, and she is now a fire captain in the fire department. On to our 20-year awards. Corey Gophert has been with the gas department since he began with the city, and he's currently a gas field operations supervisor. Congratulations. Next is Steve Llewellyn. He has been with the city for 20 years, and he is now the solid waste manager. Another 20-year employee is Jose Vasquez. He's a utility locator with the gas department. And our last award is for Mr. David Wilson. David has given 20 years of service to the city of Leesburg. He's in our IT department as a systems administrator.
Jobs well done. Okay, we are going to move to the CARES Act, which is 6B. Would somebody like to introduce, please?
Okay, the CARES Act actually, there.
Fine.
Resolution. I'll introduce, not to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an interlocal agreement with Lake County for the CARES Act municipal funding and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Minner first.
Yeah, if you would, if I can tee this up a little bit for the commission and the community. Essentially, the situation is that the county has received about $64 million in CARES Act money that is part of the larger federal package that was given. That money then was passed down to the states and then divided to the counties, and Lake ended up with about $64 million of it. Of that $64 million, the county received, I think it was about $12 million that they had immediate cash and ability to spend, and they divided that up for business relief. There's 3 layers of that grant. I think it was $2,500, $5,000, and $7,500, depending on the size of the business and if they were affected. After the county made the decision to move forward with phase 1, they had about $48 million of CARES Act funding remaining. A portion of that was carved up for what they're calling the subrecipient or the municipal grants. That amount of the $48 million comes up to $10 million. The county then came up with a formula, discussed this in some detail with the municipalities on several different conference calls, and then the Board of County Commissioners formally approved it, the subrecipient grant program. And essentially they separate the 10 million based on a flat $75,000 amount awarded to counties or cities, and then based on population, another amount. So from those amounts, the city of Leesburg is eligible for about 1.2 million. It's $1,193,750 to be exact. We then can use those funds to spend as we see fit, pursuant to the rules that were established by the CARES Act federal guidelines. So with that, there is a subrecipient grant package, which is the resolution that you're considering now. Should you approve that resolution, there's a couple of steps that you have to take. One, approve the resolution. If you do, that will say that you want to participate in the program to spend that 1.2 million the way that this community deems fit. We have to have a spend plan to the county by the 18th, so that's Friday, describing how we will spend the funds. Then the county reviews that, the state reviews that, and based on their approval, we then get the green light to go ahead with the spending. The spending reimbursement will come one of two ways, either direct reimbursement based on the availability of funds from the state to the county to us, or we put in our own cash to be reimbursed when that training completes itself. I don't have more details than that. My guess is that if we spend the cash, we'll probably be able to get the businesses relief faster than waiting on the train to come, but then we would be reimbursed. And you have the cash to front that. That cash then has to be spent by December 31 of this year. Having said that, I outlined that process for you a little bit in the package. The resolution says that we'll do the agreement. The agreement says basically we accept all the regulations and we'll do it as we're told. And for this purposes, because by Friday we will need a spend plan, this has been pretty much in flux, so I didn't put a formal round so fast. B, it's kind of been all over the place. So having said those things, here's my recommendation. A lot of thought went into the recommendation, and my recommendation to the commission is to try to get this money in the hands of affected businesses as fast as you can. So having said that, I think then we need to target where we're at, and so my recommendation would be Lake Square Mall to receive about $500,000, Tom Frost Enterprises, which helps a lot of businesses in downtown, $250,000. Other affected businesses in our primary corridors. So that gets affected businesses in all our commercial corridors. So now it's not just a mall and it's downtown, but it could be downtown. It could be Dixie Avenue, Griffin Road, 441, 27. So all of the affected businesses, 400,000. And then what we can do is break that 400,000 into grants of 10,000 each. So that could be up to 40 businesses awarded 10 grand, which hopefully then will supplement what they've already or could receive from the county. After you make those three big steps, you're left with $43,750, and my recommendation there is to split that amongst the three primary Leesburg civic groups, being the CDC, the Partnership, and the Leesburg Chamber, and that comes out to about $14,583,000 for each of those three groups. So there's a lot of steps in between, but what we need to have tonight is if you want to approve the CARES Act subrecipient grant, you need to make the resolution, sign off on the grant, give the mayor the authority to do that, and then you need to give me some guidelines on how to put together the spend plan, which we need to get into the county by the 18th. So with that, Mayor, Commissioners, I will take your direction.
Mr. Hurley, are you on the phone?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead with your comments.
Thank you. I'm pretty good with most of this. For me, I understand the mall and we have already helped them, but obviously we don't want that to go empty and boarded up. So, I think for me, I would feel better. I'd feel more comfortable with 400 instead of 5, based on the 5 we've already given. I don't want to, I don't support giving Frost Enterprise the 250. And there's a couple of reasons for that. My first reason is, we several vacancies, whether you started talking about, Ben or Jack or whoever, and, we're gonna single out one property owner and say we're gonna let, you have the money to do that. And number two, what kind of guarantees would we be able to put in place that money actually went out to help the businesses? So, I would feel much better taking that 250 and just assigning it to downtown businesses that are here, because we know all of our businesses are struggling tremendously. I think my last count, we had lost 11 businesses downtown, if that's correct. And so for me, I'd like to see that money just actually go to the businesses there instead of to one property owner, hoping that, that helped whatever businesses rented from him, opposed to up and down Main Street. And that would still allow us to take the 400,000 and effectively, have a bigger impact, because if we did 40 businesses at 10,000 and we did 10 of them downtown, that's 10 more we could put in some of the other corridors. But I would actually like to, I would say take, if my vote would be take 400,000 to the mall, and then take 150 or 200 and do to the downtown businesses, and then take the other 100 of that and roll it down into the partnership and the chamber and the Center for the Arts. So that's where my feelings are on it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you, Jay, for your comments. My comments are actually fairly close to Jay's. I want to see the money distributed more equitably. I think 500 to the mall is heavy. I had 400,000 in my notes, so I think Jay and I are in agreement on that. As far as downtown, I agree with Jay entirely. I'd like to see I'm not sure if I followed Jay's numbers, but the 250, I think I heard 150, 200, but I'd like to see the 250 distributed more equitably downtown. The 100,000 that we strip away from the mall, put into the grant fund, so bumping that from 400 to 500, so we can help 50 businesses instead of 40. And I may withdraw that a little bit. The last comment, and we'll need to massage these numbers, is the Leesburg Partnership. We, a couple months ago, the party came in here for a request. We pulled that request back on the basis that we sent them to the county. I think there was on the record, I think we talked about thinking they could obtain some substantial money from the county through the CARES Act. Numbers I heard, up to maybe $100,000, and that's turned into $5,000. And I know I said it on the record, and I think others did, that if they did not get money through the county, that we would come back and help them out. So I would like to see 50,000 go to the partnership, and then we can, and maybe that comes out of the mall's money. Then the 43,000 could be split, a little bit more for them. So that's my initial reaction, which is similar to Jay's.
Commissioner Roebuck.
Thank you. So I'm closer to the city manager's recommendation. I think first with the mall, it's a unique situation in terms of how it actually ties back into the city's finances, and I'm hoping the city manager can go through those numbers with the CRA fund and the importance of that. So we could really be shooting ourselves in the foot. Basically giving them money, we come out ahead because of the way the CRA funding works, and it's one of the most critical things for the city going forward is that the malls stay open because of the impact they have on that CRA, as well as the utility customer as well. So I'm okay on the 500. And then also I'm okay on the 250 for Tom Frost's companies. I think that, if you think back, even 5 years ago, we were begging investors to come into Leesburg, and we finally got someone to do that, and they've spent a lot of money and have committed to taking the money they're getting from this and spending it again back into downtown. So this money is going to be reinvested. The smaller grants, they're great for helping people out, but the county had that. You had all the federal programs, the EIDL, the PPP, and all those, the money goes to help people, but they can take it and do with it, frankly, anything they want. And we have, a big investor who's saying that I'm going to take the money, I'm going to put it right back into downtown. So I think that doing something big is important. And then in terms of the partnership, I spoke with their incoming president, and she indicated that they will not be asking for additional funding after their last board retreat, as long as they get the $38,000 that we have in the budget, which I'm no longer opposed to. They don't need any more money right now. So okay with the 14, but I think if they're not asking for more right now, I'm kind of the opinion that when we get back to events, and if we get to the point where to do a major event, they need some help, then I'm entirely open to that. We want events to come back, and when we know what's coming back and what exactly they need, I'm supportive of it. But I think right now, just giving kind of extra cash is maybe a little bit premature.
Thank you. Commissioner Christian.
Thank you, Mayor, and appreciate everyone's comments tonight. And I think the city manager has done a great job, as heard somebody say, equitable. There's a lot of Commissioner Roebuck talked about Mr. Frost, and I had a depth conversation with Mr. Minner. I know he has a lot of people who are renting from him. So my only concern would be to make sure that we're going to give this money that is stops downtown. So my concern would be the city manager making sure Mr. Frost understands we're giving this as a good faith offer to make sure those businesses stay alive and vibrant in Leesburg, whatever assistance he can give those businesses. I'm sure he's already has, because for restaurants it's been really difficult. And I think the city manager was very elegant when he said, we already giving $250 for downtown, and other businesses 400,000. I think we're forgetting that Leesburg is not just downtown. We have some other quarters, especially Griffin Road, Boulevard, that we don't want those businesses to go out of business as well. And we started talking about nonprofit. I think we have some CDCs that I think will make sure that funding gets to a segment of our population. So when we say CDC, I think it's important to realize that those groups work with people who are calling every day about utility assistance, a place to live. And so I think it's important, as we talk about equitable, that we make sure that the entire city is covered in our CARES Act. And as Commissioner Roebuck said, there have been federal programs for other businesses to apply. So I think this is just an extra layer that the city needs to make sure we're looking to make sure that businesses stay afloat in Leesburg. And so I think the city manager's done an admirable job looking at the mall. I don't know if 500 is the number that I would say, but I'm sure he's already looked at it. And as we talk about the CRA quarter, the ad valorem tax that the mall brings in, plus our utilities that they bring into the city, I think it's a good investment. So I'm fine with the city manager's recommendation, but I will make sure that we also make sure we spread the funds throughout our city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. I've got to agree with Commissioner Christian and Mr. Roebuck. I believe that the 500 to the mall is extremely important because of the taxes that are grown off of that and the number of jobs that we could lose should that mall shut down. The last thing we want on a major thoroughfare, 441, is to have an empty mall that's all boarded up. We don't need that. As far as Mr. Frost, I think you can lower that to 200, and I want to be assured that that money is spent on the businesses that are trying to survive, not just a gift to Mr. Frost. The money on corridor 27, 441, the other roads, move that 50 to the 400, and also the money from the partnership. The partnership can get their grant of $13,000, which we put on hold for right now, and once they start having events, then we can start to revisit that for next year. We don't have to keep funding them if they're not doing any events. I think that's pretty much it. Then take that money from the partnership and divide it up for the Center for the Art Partnership, Chamber of Commerce, and whatnot, which was mentioned previously. So I think with that, are there any public comments about this money?
Mayor, may I say something again?
Yes.
So my only concern, you know, and if the commission feels that 500 for the mall is appropriate, then I'm fine with that. I have two concerns. One is, and I'm sorry, after my stroke, I've been out of touch on some things, but you know, I do understand that the big issue right now for the partnership was to have us a Main Street manager and not going with a president or whatever they call it for the partnership as a whole, but just making sure that there was a Main Street manager. And I don't know if someone's there from the partnership that maybe could answer, because I'm a little confused on some of the dollars. I know there was 38,000, and then you just spoke of 13,000. So, you know, I want to make sure that we do have the funding there. I understand they're not doing the events and such, but I do want to make sure that we have the Main Street manager position locked in. And then my only other concern, which we're agreeing on the businesses downtown. I think we're just kind of divided in part by in which we do that. You know, if two points. Number one, if you take Ben Mosley, who has multiple businesses rented out, if you take Jack, if you Guy out, and say you can help the businesses that rent from you, and then, you know, he can disperse that. So I think that's unfair to say that one landlord and one set of businesses that rent from that land get help, but the other ones don't. And so for me, it's an issue of trying to take that money and put it in the businesses downtown. And with the city being involved, I think we would have a bigger impact up and down the street, and it would affect everybody instead of just because Mr. Frost is not the only one who's invested downtown. He did come in, and I agree with Commissioner Christian, I think, who said it. You know, we begged companies to come in, and so, you know, we're glad. But what about the guys who have been here a long time and have steadily, you know, been invested in downtown? So that's my concern. I mean, if we want to go 500 with that, but I really struggle giving the 250 to Frost instead of just dispersing it through the businesses downtown.
Point taken, Commissioner Hurley. That's probably a very good point, because we'd be cutting out a couple of other investors. Other commissioners?
I have a few more comments. Jay, I actually agree with you entirely. Yeah, I agree with Jay. I feel strongly about downtown. I don't see how you can give 250 to one property owner. I don't need to regurgitate what Jay just said, but that doesn't seem fair at all. You know, as Jay said, you've got people been out here a long, long time. There's multiple people. I know it'll be difficult to distribute. I greatly appreciate Tom Frost's investment downtown. I don't want that to be misunderstood. But the rest of you, I mean, that's just doesn't seem very fair and equitable to me. As far as the partnership, I guess I should have clarified. You know, my idea there is maybe carve out 50 out of this money, benefit the other nonprofits. I think we were talking about giving them 38. That would come out of the general fund. Maybe we hold that money back, and we have a little flexibility from a budget standpoint. But go ahead and use 50 now, you know, toward the partnership. I don't feel as strongly about that as I do the 250 downtown. I just do not follow that logic at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Milner?
Yeah, I hate sticking my nose into this. The good thing about it is, at least the recommendation I think is on target. So if I could throw out a compromise for you to consider, keep them all at 500. Instead of Tom Frost Enterprises 250, you can just make that affected downtown businesses. And Tom will certainly be able to apply for that fair share through enterprises. Keep the 400 for the affected businesses, and then keep the civic funding the way it is. A couple compromises in there is, you were still kind of arguing about where we're at with the partnership and how much to or not to give. And instead of direct to Tom Frost Enterprises, you still got a pretty nice chunk of change going immediately to downtown.
I would say, and I'm certainly open to change, the idea that maybe 250 is the wrong number. I know Mayor Jensen mentioned 200. I think, one, we're not talking about cutting any business out, because in any scenario, we're talking between $400,000 and $500,000 for other businesses to apply for money for. But I think giving 25 businesses $10,000 is not going to get you the same impact as giving one 250. I mean, it just won't, because $10,000 doesn't get anything done, right? Doesn't get projects done. And so, I mean, I agree that we need to spread some more money around, and I think the plan does that. But I want to see us get some bang for a buck, and we have someone saying that if you give me the money, I'm going to turn around and do capital projects with it in your downtown. That's what got my attention. Just like keeping the mall, that one big thing is really, I think, how we get a return on this money.
Commissioner Roebuck, my concern with that is, though, Tom Frost Enterprise, they're doing exactly what you're talking about. They're saying they're going to give relief on utilities and rent. So they're going to be dispersing it out. I mean, they're not going to go out and build a new building or outside the area of Main Street. That's what Commissioner Christian and them were talking about, taking it to, whether it's Griffin and Thomas and 27 and south of town and out on, towards the boulevard. So, I mean, we're saying that at the end of the day, we're saying the same thing in essence, helping them, but he's just going to determine which businesses get help on rent and electric instead of us giving them $10,000 and having faith in them to do the thing to stay in business and not losing more. So, I don't know. I still think that dispersing it out in that 250 or 200 or whatever the commission agrees downtown, or dispersing it equally. But I mean, maybe we do it per building. We break it down. I mean, I named off. There's 4 landlords right there that have multiple businesses renting from them. And at the end of the day, how do you look at any one of them and say you deserve it, but you don't? So, maybe we go by how many buildings they own, a portion per building or a portion per business, I mean, I just think there's got to be some way to try to help everybody down there, because when I talk, everybody downtown is struggling. I mean, we've lost 11 that I know of, supposedly. That's the right number. And whether it's a restaurant, a bar, a boutique, they're all suffering. And so, the city's been helping. We've been helping with reducing, utility rates and everything we can. And yes, I think some of them got some federal assistance as well, but I just really struggle with giving this to one guy.
I guess my question, and listening to everyone's comments, is back to the city manager recommendation. Al, you probably did more research than most of us, I would imagine. So could you help me understand why your recommendation was for Mr. Frost with $250,000?
Because Mr. Frost has the ability to get those rent subsidies or other improvements in town, a little bit like what Commissioner Roebuck said. The only fly in that ointment is there's
Excuse me, could we hold the conversations down in the audience? Thank you.
The only fly in the ointment there is I understand the intent, and I think the intent's there. There's some trust that we need to make sure that where those improvements go. But remember, this is reimbursement relief money, so as long as they qualify and they can demonstrate a loss, we can't dictate where it's spent. We can only dictate on this is relief funds, and we hope that then trickles down. So Commissioner Roebuck is right in that this provides an immediate relief to an enterprise that operates a lot of the downtown, and if the money's used in a certain fashion, it will have a bigger impact. But the other side of that equation is that's the hope. So if we're having conflict here on how to divide this up, then I would fall back to the fallback position, which is make sure that your major commercial corridors, downtown, and the mall get specific funding for different reasons. The mall is critical, as Commissioner Roebuck said, because unlike any other business in town, and this is not a disparagement of any business, but for us as an organization in the city, the one business that has a humongous impact on our finances is the mall. And that's for two reasons. One, because they're a huge ad valorem taxpayer. And number two, unlike anything else in the general fund, so if you're at the barber shops or if you're Hags or if you're whatever business, God forbid they would go dark, but their tax money is not immediately pledged to a bond. The mall is, and the mall is attached to that 44127 CRA bond. And we have worked since 2000, since my arrival, to get that CRA flipped around so that when we did that debt in 2010, that debt would not come to roost in the general fund. So we've done a lot of work from recalibrating the CRA, which Jim Williams did, and then the growth we saw this year. Remember when we did the budget presentation, 70% growth in the 44127 CRA. Hopefully that doesn't turn around next year and go immediate negative. And all the trends, even at modest growth, showed that CRA is going to be able to take care of itself. But if you lose the mall, that's a big nut, and it's immediately going to come back and affect the general fund. Okay, so the mall is special. That doesn't mean other businesses aren't special, but that means the mall has a special characteristic. Okay, so then downtown, downtown's special. So I can understand making sure that we have a viable downtown. We've invested so much in downtown, the downstreet, the master plan that we just completed, the businesses, this facility on the lakefront where we're trying to marry the two, so that has an effect. But then we also have the minority businesses in Griffin and those other spots, and that's why if we're going to shift, I can see shifting more into affected business monies too. So, and then the civic clubs, those three areas that we talked about, the CDC, the ability for them to directly help the minority community, the chamber, again, helping the business community, and then we've always talked about the partnership, and that helped. And I know we have differing opinions on that. So I think we're in the right area. It sounds like to me the big compromise is instead of shifting more money to the partnership or whoever or less to Tom or whatever, we can at least still make sure the money gets there by changing the frost and putting on downtown.
Yeah. And going back.
So that just seems like it's the natural compromise.
And what Commissioner Hurley was saying, I think Commissioner Peterson, we have some other investors that are downtown that could apply for the $10,000 grants. So I don't know how many investors. I know BMOs. I don't know the others that Commissioner Hurley named out. But is it possible for us to identify those investors and say, instead of you applying for the $10,000 grant, we're going to set aside $40,000 for specific for investors downtown that we feel we want to encourage, or to just simply say, thank you for investing in Leesburg. Here's $20,000, $10,000 guaranteed for you, as opposed to putting the $250 in one pot and just whoever can apply for it.
Yeah, the other big property owners downtown, I don't want to sit here and name them all off, but as I go down kind of my mental list, I go to Anita Valdez, Ben Mosley, Jerry Galbraith. I mean, I just don't see how you can give money to Tom and not give something to these people. I know it's a very difficult task to try to break this up, and I will concede on everything. So I expect this conversation to be much more challenging than this. I think my only point now is getting the 250 distributed equitably downtown, and I'm fine with Al's recommendation.
What about?
I agree with that.
What about making the downtown we would need to, I think we all kind of know what downtown is, right? We're talking about Main Street and what, like 2 streets over roughly. We're talking about a pretty defined area. And instead of for businesses, that making the downtown specifically to property owners, that would then hopefully put it back into the businesses, whether it's through improvements or tenant, but I kind of view that as the intent there is we want it to go to the people that have been investing in downtown.
And that's how I looked at it, Dan. I mean, we're giving it to Tom because he's a big property owner, so I was looking strictly at the other big property owners. Well, not just the big ones, all of them, but no, not businesses as much as property owners, because like John said, the businesses could go for the grant, but I think John's trying to get that money out of downtown, and I respect and understand that, but I'll be quiet. I think everybody knows where I stand. I think we need to be fair to everybody downtown.
And be flexible on that, Dan. I mean, I think it's obviously very prudent for a property owner to help their businesses out. Hopefully that would be the case with each one of them. But I definitely think that we need to come up with a formula that disperses it to each property owner so that we have all the assistance going downtown and not just in a select few. It's just I just can't wrap my head around that.
Okay, one of the things we definitely have to do tonight is to vote on this resolution that the county will submit that money to Leesburg. So we want to get that out of the way so at least we know that money is coming to the city. As far as disbursement and whatnot, it's obvious there's going to have to be additional talking this week to come up with a plan for Mr. Minner. So if we could, would somebody move on the resolution for a vote?
Mayor, may I ask you one question? I'm just a little confused.
Yes.
I thought Al said that they had to submit how we were going to disperse it by the 18th to the county.
That's correct, but the most important thing right now is to get the resolution passed so that we know the money is coming to the city.
Okay, so we'd be voting just on...
Just on the resolution, not on anything else.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I think we need to allow public comment still too. It seemed like there were some people that wanted to speak.
I'm sorry?
I think we need to allow public comment. There were some people who wanted to speak before we vote on it.
Okay, was there any public comment for, yes, please, Tracy.
Good evening, I'm Tracy Samples. I'm the Downtown Leesburg Business Association president. So I'm just absorbing everything that's happening tonight and processing. And just a few thoughts. As far as spreading the wealth, as far as the landlords, I do know personally that some of the landlords waived a lot of their rents during this process as things have slowly been coming back. So just to give you that input. And also, if Downtown Leesburg Business Association could be included in some of the monies, I don't know if you know that our mission is to help promote not only the businesses, but it's to help promote downtown as well. We are a big, we do the biggest billboards to help promote downtown that are on 44 and 27, and unfortunately we've had to give up one of the billboards happening in at the end of the year because we have not been able to have our fundraisers, and it's a significant amount of what we do to help promote downtown. And we put on the chili cook-off and the barbecues, and then a significant amount of our monies go to help in advertising and promoting and working with the partnership as well. So those are my thoughts. And yes, many landlords. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. Is there anybody else? Okay, let's get this resolution voted on, please.
So Al, just for clarification, so you don't need a spending plan by Friday?
No, I do. I just passed the mayor a note, and what the note said was approve the reso this evening. I have a general consensus of where you want to go, which is $500,000 to the mall, $250 downtown, $400 to businesses, and then divide the $433,750 divided by 3. I'll put together a little bit more formal plan on how we get the money distributed downtown. We have a special meeting on Thursday to do the first reading of the budget, so we can agendize this item, and I got my work cut out for me for tomorrow and Wednesday, but I'll put together the spend plan, get it ready to go, present it to you on Thursday. At that time, you can give me the formal okay, and then Friday I'll hit send to the county.
Thank you. Everybody okay with that? September 17th during
Yes, ma'am.
tax meeting and whatnot. Thank you, Jay.
And I'll make that motion to approve that recommendation.
Okay.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Mayor Dennison?
Yes. Okay, let's open this up. We've got a changing schedule here, but let's do public comments. And just let me say, with the public comments, we are going to talk about Sunnyside. So if you could hold off your public comments about Sunnyside until that time of the agenda, when that information is put out, I would appreciate that. Mr. Bill Faisal, you wanted to speak first?
How you doing? My name is Billy Fail. That's okay. Like I fell down. But anyway, everybody around town knows me as Billy Bob. First of all, let me tell you, I am shaking in my boots up here today because I truly do hate to be here tonight. But first of all, I want to let you know I didn't come to, I guess the first question I need to know is, what is the city's position now on body cams? What was ever decided about that?
There has been no decision yet. We still have to have a meeting with the police and whatnot, and we'll discuss the body cams at that part. Right now, we do not have body cams.
Okay, let me present what happened to me here, and maybe this will help present why we need body cams. It not only protects the police officers, it also protects the citizens as well, okay? Unfortunately, I got on the bad stick of that. What happened was I had a tenant pre-COVID that I was in the process of getting evicted from the property because of physical damage to my property. She had a nuisance guest. There was drinking, drugging, the whole 9 yards. Okay, I tried to have him trespass. The police department did not understand the Landlord-Tenant Acts of Florida. Every time I'd call him down there, the officer, happened to be the same officer, a couple times said that he would not do it. Okay, it escalated one day. When it got to the bowling point, I called James Argento in the state attorney's office and asked how to proceed. He told me to call for a civil standby so I could enter the property to videotape the property, and that's which I did. Unfortunately, evidently that tenant had a camera in the property, okay? Saw that, came home, things escalated. This police officer came back, told me I had an illegal lease, told me I could not do what I did in my lease, and I've been a landlord. I've owned multiple properties in the cities for 36 years. I bought my first property when I was 24, so I truly understand the ins and outs of what a landlord can and cannot do, okay? Anyway, that police officer, she's made some disparaging comments about my reputation and all, and her boyfriend and I got into a pushback thing. Basically, he made threats against me. I asked him again to trespass him. He would not, okay? The boyfriend went on to make disparaging remarks against my son, so I basically told him to kiss my grits. You know what that means, right? I literally lifted up the back part of my shirt, showing my upper back fat, and one hand my butt cheek, okay? Unfortunately, that police officer took those comments and took what she said and wrote a narrative on his report that had me arrested for exposing my sexual organs. Ma'am, I've been a youth pastor in this community for almost 30 years. I volunteer on Thursday nights as a celebrated addictions counselor. I sit there and I work at the hospitals, okay? I cannot have anything of that nature. That did not even meet Florida's own rules when it comes to what that is about. The problem, though, is I give Chief Hicks credit. He got it expunged in record time, and I truly thought things were off, you know what I mean, everything's fine and dandy, everybody kissing, make up, and going our separate ways. Unfortunately, the web does not allow that, ma'am. Florida, with the sunshine laws, allow that to be published. The Lake Legal News, I am now in the little smut magazines at the local convenience stores there, okay? That police officer misrepresented the truth, and I understand corrective measures have been taken for that. But unfortunately, I now have to live with the consequences of that decision that he made. And from having parents call, which I don't blame the parents. And, you know, if my kids had a youth pastor, if I had, you know, of that nature, I would want to question too. You know, I shouldn't have to have the pastor stand up and defend me. I shouldn't have to have the leaders of the congregation stand up and defend me. And so body cams would have presented that a whole different. I guarantee you his behavior that day would have not escalated to what had happened. Body cams would have protected him. And I don't mean click and bait. I don't mean he gets to choose. Cameras, I did my own set of researches, can be designed to where the minute the police officer exits the cars, the cameras come on. And, you know, society is tired of the click and bait things that we see on TV, okay? A body cam would have presented him, and a body cam would also have protected me. And like I said, if I truly did it, I guarantee you I would stand up here and admit I had truly did what I was accused of. But because of misrepresentation of the truth, now I'm having to proceed. I have already met with Al Minner. I've already met with Chief Hicks. And today I met with Al, Chief, and Fred Morris. And I truly do not know how else to proceed other than the litigation matter. Because this now has become a civil reputation of my character.
Okay, well, let me ask you, what are you looking for as far as...
You know, this is it. A public apology at the beginning, I thought would have handled it, but this is not the problem. When I'm trying to return back to the workforce, this is going to show up. What's the first thing every HR department does now? Ma'am, the nature of my job working in the hospital, what I do, I hold catheters when people are in surgery. When doctors pull out casts and heart casts, I'll hold compression on the private areas of people. My job entitles, I worked for the Children's Hospital. I worked for the Florida Children's Hospital for 19 years. I also did a contract service for Nemours. And you have to understand, if this had happened to any one of y'all on this committee, y'all would immediately have been suspended from your commission till it was straightened out. But then your reputation never could be regained.
Okay, I ask you again, what do you want? You've already met with Chief Hicks and Al Minner and Mr. Morris.
I'm going to pursue this in civil court.
Okay. I thank you for bringing that up.
All right. And I just ask that y'all do a full investigation on it, because like what happened to me could happen to anyone.
I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that has a public comment? Okay, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commission or staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Pull the item from the consent agenda, vote on remaining items with one roll call vote, and discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Are there any items you wish to be called?
Well, 5B3 for me, please.
I'm sorry, what was that?
B3.
B3, okay. Anybody else? No? I have a motion to approve all others.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Mayor Dennison.
Yes. Would somebody introduce 5B3, please?
I introduce and recommend read by title only, please.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a third amendment to an existing agreement with SWI Software Installed, Inc. for meter reading services and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Do we have a second on that?
Mayor, I pulled this to ask the city manager if he would contact the company and have them to wear more appropriate shirts or gear that people can recognize them as contracted City of Leesburg laborers. We've had a couple incidents where they've been on residents' property. It had to be identified. I think one incident was Mr. Jones, who came, and I think he had a handgun on him. And the guy was in his backyard. So I think if we could get maybe ours can have something so when you're in the neighborhood, people can recognize who you are, so we don't have confrontations.
We can take care of that.
Thank you, sir.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Dennison.
Yes. Okay, resolutions. Would somebody like to introduce Resolution 1, please? C1.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
That's on the consent. Are we move it?
Oh, did I
Public
miss
hearing?
something here?
C is on consent.
6A.
Okay.
You're on 6A.
Ah. Good. Public and routine items, we just went through that one fast. 6A, would somebody introduce, please? Oh, wait a second, I'm supposed to be reading an announcement. That's why everybody's dead silent up here. Remember the good old days when people said computers would do away with all this paper? I am now opening the public hearing to discuss the fire assessment resolution on tonight's agenda. Would anyone in the public like to speak to this issue? This is the fire assessment fee. Thank you. Now, shall we go back to this? Somebody introduce 6A, please.
I introduce and recommend, read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, relating to the provision of fire protection services, facilities, and programs in the City of Leesburg, Florida, imposing fire protection assessments against assessed property located within the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020, approving the rate of assessment, approving the assessment roll, and providing for an effective date.
Motion for approval, please.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No, guess not. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
No.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Mayor Dennison?
No. 6C, would somebody like to introduce, please?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the ratification of collective bargaining agreement with the Florida Police Benevolent Association, Inc., for officer detectives and corporal sergeants, and providing an effective date.
Motion for approval. Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Discussion?
So I support everything, the raises, all that, but as is normal, I don't support any defined benefit pensions, so I'll be voting against the measure.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roebuck?
No.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Dennison?
Yes. Okay, 6D. First reading of an ordinance amending the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances, flood damage prevention and protection. Would somebody like to introduce, please?
I introduce and recommend, read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10.5, Flood Damage Prevention and Protection, to make modifications to bring the regulations into conformance with the most current FEMA-approved floodplain management ordinance for Florida communities that is coordinated with the Florida Building Code, providing for applicability and severability, and providing an effective date.
Okay, this is the first meeting. Is there any first reading? Any discussion? Thank you. 6E. Would somebody introduce, please?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, rezoning approximately 30.53 acres from P Public and R3 High Density Residential to PUD Planned Unit Development for property generally located east of Pixiola Road and south of Park Holland Road as legally described in sections 14 and 15, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Okay, this is first reading. Is there any discussion on this? Is there anybody in the audience that's here about the property on Pixiola? Okay, thank you. 6F, please. Would somebody introduce?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 18.5 acres, being generally located east Eastside Drive, lying in Section 33, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city as if all such territory had been in City Commission District 1, and providing an effective date.
This is first reading. Any discussion? People in the audience, I know a lot of you are here for Sunnyside. Just let me tell you, there are 3 resolutions tonight, all first reading. I think the one that is probably the one that you're waiting for is H. So we've got 2 more to go, and no? All 3, okay. If you come up and give your name and where you live, we're going to have an overview first. Go ahead.
Greg Bellavo, representing the applicant. I'd just like to state that this is first reading, and rather than have another 2 hours worth of discussion tonight, since it took over 2 hours at Planning and Zoning, then doing another 2 hours at second reading, the applicant would like to defer our presentation until the second reading, which is when you take your vote to whether or not to approve the second reading, which is actually the vote that actually is the one that carries through for the applications. That way, we then have it for when you're actually voting for the ordinances themselves rather than the introductions. That way, it saved, I think, saved time on your part rather than doing 2 hours tonight and then 2 hours again during second reading. I think would be a better use of our time as well as your time. We have 3 cases before you. Our application is basically annexation of 18 acres adjacent to the parent tract, which was 121 acres. And it is a piece of property that was brought in 2004, 2005, the parent tract, which was 121, bringing a total project of 136 acres. All 3 are related, and I was just going to stand up here once, get it over with, and sit down, and then go through the evening with you and take notes when the folks came up. And again, reserve all my rebuttals for the second hearing. Bring my experts at that time rather than tonight, and carry it out through this evening and spare you some time, if that's all right with you all.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. The case is owned by Dr. Coe at this time, and is a carryover of an old PUD that has expired. The PUD originally was approved in December of 2005, and it has expired and had an approval of 120 units on the parent tract of 120 acres. The new 18 acres that's being added abuts the lake, and the PUD has 18 lots of a half acre in size that those lots are. We've coordinated and have on file all the support reports, traffic analysis, environmental. In fact, one reason I can't have the environmental consultant tonight, last week his son's fiance tested positive for COVID. So he's not allowed to leave home for another 2 weeks. So he'll be available just before the second reading. We did coordinate with Lake County Public Works for background information with our traffic. We met personally with Seth with Lake County Public Works and went over that report. Second reading, I'll go over all the details of what we worked out with him. The environmental study has been reviewed and has been, our site has been inspected by some of our neighbors and has been updated based on reports of what they've cited. We ask that you listen to, you review our information. We'll be providing those details with you at the second reading. We have information we'll provide to you on the screen. We've researched the adjacent properties. We've researched the adjacent subdivisions to provide you some information on adjacency and compatibility. We also provide exhibits showing how our property and our PUD, we've tried to be very compatible with how our adjacent property and our project has open space lots. We have no 50-foot lots. One of the things that some of the rumors have spread, our lot sizes are rather large in size. We have half-acre lots, like I mentioned earlier, on the lakeside. Our lots on the parent track are 70s and 80s, our 80-foot lots, but Sunnyside Drive. So we've tried to be cognizant of our neighbors. And with that, I'll sit down. We're going to be in for a little while of listening to what our neighbors have to say. I'll be taking notes and be prepared for second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Bellevue. The president of the group has asked to be able to speak first.
Thank you. I want to let Zach come up and just say a few words. We're going to keep it short and sweet tonight if that's the way to do it. But we do have a few concerns about this that we feel that the City Commission needs to hear that affects the property. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Broom first, and I'll follow up with him.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And for clarity, I believe we're talking about the annexation, but does the council have any objection if I just kind of deal with the section about rezoning as well?
That's fine.
Okay. And do you mind if I take this off?
No problem. We just need your name and address, please.
No. Zach Broom, Bowen and Schroff, 600 Jennings Avenue, Eustis, Florida. And I'm also not going to get into every issue here tonight. The most basic, I think, as was alluded to by the applicant, is the question of really what's being presented to the commission for approval. It's being framed as an extension or modification of a 2005 PUD. The problem with that is it's really a double-edged sword for the applicant because, number one, the PUD expired in 2007. And the big thing is, and what I think is most important, is the PUD that was sought and obtained and recorded as part of the annexation explicitly says that the implementation shall commence within 24 months, and in the event it's not implemented, the PUD shall be scheduled for reconsideration. The Planning Commission will consider whether to extend that approval or rezone to RE1 or in another appropriate zoning classification less intense than the development permitted. So the problem is, if we're going to take the position that this underlying zoning is the PUD from 2005, the application before you is asking you to act in derogation of what was implemented. They're asking to upzone. They're asking to extend, to make the density higher to 1.2 gross units. The other thing that's important between now and second reading is the applicant makes a point that it's 1.2 gross units. That doesn't take into account net units. The PUD that was originally approved had a 1.7 net. What we're talking about now, and it was 120 units on 120 acres approximately. We're talking about now 159 on 135, but that doesn't take into account jurisdictional wetlands, which are legally not buildable anyways, which is on the site plan as open space and conservation area. So we're talking about a significantly dense property, and the reason that RE1 is significant between now and second reading, under the Leesburg LDRs, you have policy statements as to what each underlying zoning is intended to accomplish. And I'm pulling up real quick the RE1. It's to encourage retention and development of suitable areas for residential development at a low density, such as detached high and medium value country estates for single family, and to discourage the creation and continuation of conditions which detract from the function, operation, and appearance of rural areas. When you're considering this on second reading, I think it's important between now and then to address the fact that this is not a continuation of an existing PUD, and if it is, the most that can happen is go downwards. You can't increase density. So again, there's going to have to be a lot more to discuss at second reading, but I think it is relevant between now and second reading to address the fact of what is going to be presented to this council for approval. Thank you.
My name is Murray Tucker, 6839 Tuscola Drive, Leesburg. I'm not a public speaker. I'm just going to be up here kind of shooting from the hip, but my great-grandfather built his house on Sunnyside at the turn of the century. We've been living out there continually for about 120 years now. I've been involved in the association for over 20 years. I had a bunch of stuff about tonight, but we'll save that for the second reading just to keep it moving tonight. But the important thing I want to stress is that the residents of Sunnyside love their community. We've had a very strong organization for many years. In the early 2000s, after the citrus had started to go, pine trees planted, development started, we were concerned. Our organization was concerned about what was going on. So we did something about it. We did exactly what we were supposed to do. We got together with the county and the city government, came up with a plan, did traffic studies, did density studies, and had a plan. That's why since 2002, when you all adopted the findings of the Sunnyside Task Force, you haven't seen us up here. We've been laying low. Y'all have been doing exactly what you're supposed to do. The higher densities on the outside, larger single families towards the inside. We have not had one single reason to come up here until now. Until this development, which does not meet the task force requirements, pops up. So all we're basically asking for is to do what's right. We want the city to do what they told us they would do back in 2002. That's not asking for much. I mean, you built the high density. I've heard the commissioners. I've been watching the tapes. Y'all want affordable housing. We gave it to you. It's on the outside. They're still building it right now. Inside is higher density. Yeah, there's a few subdivisions that were platted in the 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe some maybe into the 70s. I don't remember. But that was all taken into account. There has been nothing done like that in the interior of Sunnyside since the task force took place. So when you consider this at the second reading, I just want you to keep that in mind, that all we're asking you to do is what you told us you would do back in 2002. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Just a reminder, 3 minutes, please.
My name is Michael Stowell. I live at 7617 Frog Log Lane. And I just kind of want to put forth for your consideration to back up the gentleman from the association who said, be careful what you're being presented by the developer, because there's a lot of smoke screens in it. At the planning and zoning meeting, he wanted to tell us that we're not really rural, that there are similar densities within the community. The math that they used, I can apply that to my subdivision, which is one of those that were platted, Arbormere. Gross area is 38 acres, 37 lots. That puts the ratio of homes to acre at 0.97. They will tell you that theirs is 1.16. You subtract the 8 acres of designated wetlands from that, that's 30 acres, 37 lots. That puts our density at 1.23 versus 1.67 from the numbers that he gave at the other meeting. But the most important thing is an impact of 160 homes versus the 29 that are currently in Arbormere is night and day. So, you know, they're putting the large lots around the outside, the perimeter, kind of as camouflage to what's going to be on the interior of the parent. And they've never really told us what the actual size of those lots are going to be. They talk about 70-foot lots, 80-foot lots, but are they quarter-acre lots? Are they all half-acre lots? They talk about half-acre lots around the perimeter. What are the lots on the inside? That, I think, is what changes a rural community back into an urban community. And one of the notes on the screen from the last meeting was, it meets the city's requirements for transition from urban to rural. That implies that there's some sort of demarcation line. The 2010, whatever the agreement was, I'm not really all that familiar with it, kind of set that demarcation line at Sunnyside Drive. This would kind of obliterate that, and it will also open the door for other high-density consideration within that community because there are other open land. And I think that's a dangerous precedent, and that will certainly ruin the fabric of that community. And I read, when I Googled about zoning laws, one of the main purposes of zoning laws was to curb the check of urban sprawl and preserve the integrity of our more rural areas and keep that intact. So I want the commission to really keep that in mind too as they're being presented this over the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Chuck Idell. I live at 7416 Sunnyside Drive. This project is right behind my house. A couple things. We've got to wait two more weeks for the second reading. I understand that. But we need to go out as a commission. I ask you to go out and look at the neighborhood. Look what's there now. Okay, it's not 3 houses on an acre. Most of it is 1 house on 3 acres, 1 house on an acre. Not 3 houses on an acre. He's going to tell you 1.1. How much of that is buildable? How many acres? 60? He's not going to ask. Another thing, you put an impact of 1,500 trips a day by doing 159 homes. The standard is 9.7 trips per household, single-family houses. You had a traffic study. That was never mentioned. 1,500 trips a day, 159 homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? What? Miss, why don't you come up and sit in the chair by the... you don't have to make that trip again.
Littleton. I live at 31620 Sun Valley Road. That's the first curve before you get to the subdivision. There's 3 of them. Most of the time, people go around that curve faster than they should. And when they make the curve, I have to turn in. I got trailers all the time I'm pulling. I turn in, there's a gate to the left on that curve. Most time when I turn in there, I get in off the road halfway in Anderson's yard so they can go around the curve, because most time they're in the middle of the road. They're not over the line. And this is people that live out there, a lot of them. So they see me, I get off the road with those trailers because I'm afraid I'm force them off the road. So there's a lot of curves out there, and they're 9-degree curves. The second one is partially blind because there's pine trees on one side. On the inside of the curve, there's pine trees. I don't know what's going to come with the third curve because I don't know what they're going to take out and put houses in there. But those curves are rough. They're 9-degree curves, and we replace mailboxes all the time. Anderson even put in one this year because somebody that lives out there took it out. Went 50 foot into the woods with a car. It worked in the morning, I think. That's a bad curve. And you get another 150 cars, or no, 300 cars going around every day. Oh, well, whatever.
Thank you, sir. Sir, excuse me, there was a lady next.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Bilski, and I live at 30644 Sunny Ridge Court. I'm going to also talk about the safety of the roads because I walk my dog at least 2 to 4 times a week on the area that we're discussing. I live on Sunny Ridge Court, and I walk up the street past Camp Horizon. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the area, but I walk up Camp Horizon, I go around one of those really big curves, and I go up the hill a little ways, and then before I get to the other curve, I turn around and come back. So that is my route that I take consistently. And I I walk all different days, and I walk at different times. I walk in the mornings, I walk in the afternoons, and I walk in the evenings. If you add this many homes, you're talking about 159 houses that you're going to add to our area. Each house usually has 2 houses per home, correct? Most homes have 2 cars per house. Okay, so you're going to add anywhere to 300 to 320 more vehicles. On top of that, these houses might have yard maintenance done, so they'll have yard workers come driving in with their trailers. You're going to have pool maintenances because a lot of people do have pools in Florida, so you're going to add that on. You're going to add more UPS drivers, more Amazon drivers. Because of COVID, we see a lot more of those drivers. Those are big vehicles. The road, I measured the roads. Okay, my street, the road is 15 feet wide on Sunnyside and Sunny Ridge Court. It's 15 feet wide. I went in front of Camp Horizon. I measured. It's 16 feet wide. I then went around the corner and I measured. The house was 7430 Sunnyside, where I kind of stop at. That was, I believe, 18 or 16, a little over 16. That one was a little over 16 also. Then I also drove down the road to where, you know where the fire rescue training station is? And there's a little development right there, right? And I thought, well, if you're going to have a development, then the road should be that wide. That road was 21, a little over 21 feet wide. So you go from 15 feet to 21 feet. The roads are not safe. I used to be a pre-K teacher, okay? I'm all about safety, and I know you guys are all here about safety. Safety is our very first thing. In any type of thing that we do, we have to be safe. These 159 houses, you're going to have children, and you're going to have children walking along the road, and you're going to have adults walking along the road. I have a beautiful view. I am very blessed. I live on the lake, and it is absolutely stunning. You come up that hill on Sunnyside, and as soon as you crest it, Lake Harris is just absolutely stunning. In Florida, you don't get a lot of views like that, okay? People are going to be walking up and down those roads. There's no sidewalks. I walk my dog. I always get off the road. When I see a car coming, I get off the road and I stop my dog. But there's going to be children that are not going to be very aware of that, okay? And this is a safety issues. And unless the county, because that road is county right there, unless the county comes in and fixes the road to make it safe, this is not a safe environment. It's not a safe place for our children and our neighbors and even drivers that come along that area. It's just not safe. And I just ask that you please consider safety. Safety first, please. It's not a safe area. And until the roads are redone, and if they want to get with the county and have them redo the roads to make it to where it is safe for that amount of cars that are going to be coming down that road, then that's on him. That's on them. That's on them. Okay? But right now, I walk that road. I walk it consistently. For the amount of traffic that comes down that road right now, it is sustainable. It is okay. I can tell you from firsthand experience of walking it. I've lived there 2.5 years. 2.5 years consistently walking that route. It's not safe if you're going to add that many vehicles. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration, and I just pray that you will find the right answer to this issue. Thank you very much.
Sir, we have to let other people have a chance first. Yes, sir. I did stop you before.
Thank you much. What I was, I'm sorry. My name is Emmett Peter III, and I live on 7165 Sunnyside Drive. And my family's probably one of the longest tenured property owners out on Sunnyside. My grandfather moved into a bungalow in 1915, and my father was born there in 1919. So we've been around the area a long time. And of course, I've seen a lot over my 69 years. Sorry to let that go, but you know, Sunnyside Drive is a nice loop, and it was all dirt roads in the early days. And because citrus groves were rectangular for cultivation, there's very few decent curves on that road. They're all tight 90-degree curves, like someone mentioned earlier. And in fact, I cycle on that road a lot, and my cycling GPS tells me in 2 places, dangerous curve ahead. And this is on a bicycle going 20 miles an hour. I can't imagine, it's definitely some areas where there's concerns that have been brought up for increasing the traffic density on that road. My background is engineering, of course. I'm not against development or improving the housing situation, but my feelings are that simply too much density for the area is putting a high density element right smack in the middle of a rural residential area. And I'd like you all to consider that very carefully as you look into this, the feasibility of this rezoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Mark Arney. May I take my mask off, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Address 7393 Sunnyside Drive. We are opposed to Sunnyside Landing. We love living here on mostly a wooded 7.5-acre parcel that is a few hundred yards from Lake Harris on the backside. My wife Karen and I moved from the hustle and bustle of Orlando about 3 years ago to enjoy the quiet tranquility and wildlife. I feel like some of the hustle and bustle has actually followed me now. Development conditions and the concept plan. The conditions state in any instance where the conditions of this document may conflict with the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances, this document should prevail. That's not right. Page 3, Part 4 of the conditions, it says document development standards, minimum lot development standards, subpart B, minimum house size 1,800 square feet. That was emphasized to me when I came in and said, no, that's not correct. There is a document that shows that it's 1,500 square feet. I'm prepared tonight. There it is, highlighted. Let me read you what it says. Each phase as it develops, and this is the concept plan, shall have the necessary infrastructure to serve that phase. Phases shall be 10 feet. This indicates a much higher density than what we've been hearing. Why are these structures so close? This almost sounds like a zero lot line development that I came away from in Orlando. Part 6.11, heritage and historic trees shall be surveyed and reviewed by staff and saved whenever possible. The City of Leesburg, for the 20th consecutive year, was named Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation. Ironically, the city continues to allow uncontrolled growth where the developers are cutting down all the trees and displacing the wildlife. Sunnyside Landing will be no exception, as the builder and city staff have been given full discretion on tree removal. I live in Sunnyside Estates, and across the street is the proposed development. I have observed a number of trees that most likely fall under the heritage and historic classifications on the developer's property. The trees will most likely be felled without community input. Does the city still have a tree board, as a news article on the designation stated in 2018? If so, the tree board should be consulted along with the impacted residents living on Sunnyside. If there is no longer a tree board, then why were you designated one of the tree cities in the U.S.? The article stated that a tree board was one of the criteria cited for cities that have that designation. Page 6, top of the page, conditions. Additional improvements on Sunnyside roads may be required to accommodate the increase and the additional trips the site produces per Lake County requirements. Emphasize, per Lake County requirements. I have been told that Lake County has gone on record the roads on Sunnyside need to be improved, but it will not pay for the improvements. The developer's representative states they are only responsible for the roads and the developer along the perimeter. The Sunnyside Lake County Comprehensive Plan, the Lake County Comprehensive Plan 2030 states road improvements in Sunnyside are particularly challenging due to several factors. Most roads are narrow with 2 lanes and in many cases lined with canopy trees. Many motorists travel these roads at very high speeds, as Peggy alluded to in her presentation prior to mine. The lack of the dedicated right-of-way presents an obstacle to widening the purpose of accommodating cars, bicycles, or pedestrians according to the plan. The task force expressed a desire to maintain the rural nature of roads while addressing the needs for pedestrian safety. In my opinion, the proposed development poses the biggest risk to road safety due to the location of hairpin curves that's been mentioned earlier, and the most narrow stretch basically is 1 lane. That's when you reach the crest, you see this beautiful view of Lake Harris, and you're coming down, it's curved on both sides. I don't think that's 10 feet wide. I have to, even on my bike, I have to move over to allow a car to come in. That's how, and not only that, when you get to the bottom, it's a hairpin curve. Stormwater drain management. Prior to the development approval, the permittee shall provide a stormwater drainage management. And this is prior to approval. Have they? I haven't seen it. The plan cannot create a detrimental to surrounding properties. Let me repeat that. The plan cannot create a detriment to surrounding properties. I am a property owner, and this proposal, no one else has showed me the plan, let alone asked for my input. Utilities. Stormwater management utility plans accepted their considered prior to development approval, and talking about natural gas. Has this plan been approved? And if so, please provide a copy of the approved plan to me and the other people that are impacted by this. What private properties will the city designate under eminent domain, to run these utilities to the proposed property, and why will natural gas lines be allowed to run in this rural area with the inherent risk that they pose? Approval is required under the terms of this document. City commissioners cannot approve the proposal otherwise. Lake County addresses utilities in its planning Horizon 2030 for the Sunnyside area in concert with the task force. I'm going to provide a written document of this because there's no way that I'm going to get through all of this.
Sir, your time is up. If you could start wrapping up, please.
I respectfully ask you that I can submit this in writing, and the council will
Absolutely.
review this. Who do I do? Where's your clerk?
City clerk is right here.
Thank you very much for your time.
My name is Charleston Haddon. I live on 7140 Sunnyside Drive. I'm not too familiar with all the commission's responsibilities and whatnot, but it's only the second meeting I've been to. It seems to be my understanding, though, that one of your biggest positions is to serve the people of this community. And when I look around this room, I sure see a lot of faces and a lot of people that are a big part of this community and have either raised their children here in Leesburg and are taxpayers and do a lot for this community. And I'll tell you, just thinking about the high density areas and the low density areas of Sunnyside, when you leave the high density area and you enter the low density area, there's a very large change that's noticeable by anybody that's not from that area. And one of the things is the amount of trash that's everywhere in the high density area alongside the roads. And I'm not sure what the connection is there. All I know is that, I grew up in that neighborhood. And, one thing is building right in the middle of a wetland and considering that you're going to preserve it with, over 100 houses on a little horseshoe spot. But I'd really like you to consider, what you're doing for the citizens of Leesburg and the people that live in Sunnyside. Because they, none of them grew up in a neighborhood or the people that live there, they're not living in a neighborhood that they weren't born in the villages. They weren't buying property that's similar to the villages. And I think it'd be a shame to start really converting Sunnyside to that type of area. I don't think it would be a justice to all the people that you're seeing here tonight. So I just would, from the bottom of my heart, I'd really love it if you would consider everything that everyone's saying, and I'll save my details for the next meeting. But thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Richard Clark, and I live at 7061 Sunnyside Drive, as well as I own a business in Leesburg. People have addressed the lack of safety in the roads as far as their design and build, but one thing I would like to add to that is the lack of sufficient lighting. There are no street lights at all around Sunnyside Drive. So I would like to encourage each of you to drive around Sunnyside not once but twice. I want you to drive around Sunnyside once in daylight hours and do it again in nighttime hours, and decide for yourselves before you make a vote whether or not that's a safe road for this development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Steve Slusser, 7375 Sunnyside Drive, Director of Camp Horizon, the next door neighbor. We were actually offered first dibs to buy that property, but we didn't have the money, or we would have bought it, with the White House on it. That's the 18.5 acres. And it's clear the only reason that they want to annex it into the city is to join it to their property to increase their density. But the fact is, if you leave it alone, they can't put more than 5 houses on there, with it zoned as it is for the county. And that's an acceptable density. 18 houses on that piece of property is not an acceptable density. And all the people who live along that lake, if you just take a boat ride, not a car ride, take a boat ride around the Sunnyside Loop and take a look at the houses. And you go from these beautiful homes along Sunnyside to 18 houses on 18 acres. It would be terrible to add this to the mess across the street. We've already established, as we've talked about it, that they're going to build, and we're not opposed to people putting homes on Sunnyside. But it's the density is the issue, and now they're going to take this 18 and a half acres and use that to make their density even bigger. It protects us from the noise of the city. We're kind of down in this little, nest in the middle of the swamp, and it's wonderful. And our Sunnyside neighbors feel the same way. So I'm opposed to the annexation of the 18.5 acres next to Camp Horizon. We don't see that that's any benefit to the long-term plan for the Sunnyside neighborhood. That should stay in the county. It should stay at, I believe it's 5 acres per, 1 house per 5 acres. That's how it's zoned. That's how it should stay. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mitchell Anderson. I live at 7478 Sunnyside Drive. And I want to reiterate on what Dr. Clark talked about as far as safety issues. I'm a former police officer, so I know about safety, I know about traffic also. Okay. Talking about street lights. I moved in my house in 1996. I live in the curve that Jimmy talked about. Okay. Pitch black dark. We used to have parties on it. His road used to be a dirt road. People come down there and party. I had to pay out of my pocket, and I still pay it once a month, have a traffic a street light installed across the street from my house in that corner to cut down on people taking out the curve and also cut down on people partying. It helped with the partying, didn't help with the curve because I replaced 3 mailboxes of my own. I replaced my fence, all because of people driving through there like that. And at nighttime, it's worse. I was woke up at 3 a.m. one morning because somebody took out my mailbox. This year. Okay? And I can almost vouch for you about twice a year somebody wrecks in that curve because they come around it because of different concerns. But the fact is, at night, you cannot see that curve. You cannot see any of the curves. There's a curve down where Chuck Idell lives at. It's pitch black dark because I look down the street at his curve. I can't see anything. You go around the other curve, you can't see anything. Back towards that, where they're wanting to develop at, Camp Horizon. Okay? It's dark. It is very unsafe down there to drive at night. And I would encourage each one of you to drive through there at night, after dark. Even the street, when you're driving down the street and it's raining hard, you can't even see the side of the road because there's no markings on the street. It's that unsafe. I encourage you to take that into consideration also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Wagner. I live on 30314 Harris Drive. It's on the corner of Johnson Point and Sunnyside. My family settled here in 1974. We built a home. It's my childhood home. After graduating from Leesburg High School, where my dad taught for 32 years, I moved away to pursue my career, and 5 years ago I returned to Leesburg because Leesburg has changed since I graduated back in 1990. I was a little concerned because my mother, who lives out there on Sunnyside by herself, a widow, was sitting in her bedroom every night crocheting and watching TV, alone with a shotgun. I'm not joking. It's true. I was very concerned for her safety. Even though she could install some, one of the things that I've noticed since coming back to Sunnyside is the increase in crime. That's something that hasn't been talked about in this meeting today. But since the high density development that took place and is taking place on Sleepy Hollow Road, I've seen quite a bit of crime increase. If we add high density homes, the crime will go up. There's no doubt about it. It's not uncommon that any of us that go on our Nextdoor apps find notes about cars that have been broken into, other types of activity. I live on the backside of Sunnyside where it is a little dark, and if you're out there late at night, you either live there or you're probably lost. And on two separate occasions, I've run into someone who was lost, was knocking on my front door in the middle of the night around midnight, and that could have been my mom answering that door. So I implore you to please consider these factors when you make this decision. Think about the elderly folks, especially the ones that are in my little neighborhood. They're very friendly and stuff, and they've been there for a long time. They may not be equipped to handle themselves whenever hundreds of new people come in and the problems that come along with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lisa Coxton, and we're very new. We're neophytes, just a couple of months on Johnson's Point Road. And my biggest concern is what most of the people have expressed, but my husband is a runner. He likes to run, he likes to do marathons, and he runs on Sunnyside. And I am really concerned that there is a safety issue there. There is not enough space, there's not the sidewalks, and if you're going to add all of this density, it does put the people who have lived here for years and the new people who want to enjoy the roads for many reasons, running, walking pets, at risk. And so until that safety issue is addressed, I really don't think, certainly, that you should be voting to approve these additional houses. We must put people first and not property. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes. Great. Yeah, we'll put that in the record. Thank you.
To make. My name is Vicki Coffin. I live at 8010 Gibson Terrace, which is about a half a mile maybe from the development. The main thing I want to say is I know Mr. Beliveau talks about some of the other subdivisions that are out in Sunnyside, and the ones that he likes to reference are Siskey Park, excuse me, and Shady Dales, which were built back in the 30s or the 40s. And yes, they are very dense subdivisions. But I would invite you guys to ride out at Sunnyside and go through Tuscaloosa, go to Secretariat, Silver Charm, the subdivision that was put in by Dr. Little years ago. And those houses are all sitting on 5 acres. And we're concerned about the lakefront property that's being annexed in because it's going to take away from the beauty and the idea of what side was supposed to be. One of the things that I'd like to talk about is, I'm not going to talk about the traffic, I'm just going to talk about a personal experience I had coming home one day, and the last curve before it straightens out and you're driving by Camp Horizon, I was run off that road, and the guy didn't stop, and it banged up my car, so, you know, and when I take that curve, I'm very concerned about it. I take it very close to where I almost am ready to run off the road because you never know who you're going to meet coming from the other side. And the last thing that I'd like to have you guys do, if you haven't, read through the Sunnyside Task Force agreement that was done in 2004. And it was done in coordination with the Greater Sunnyside Property Owners Association. There were members from our Property Owners Association that met with city officials. I think Tim Sennett was one of the city officials, Larry Taylor, John O'Kelly. They were all on that board, and they met with the county, and this is what everybody decided would be the best thing for Sunnyside on the inner part. Like Mr. Tucker said, we have not had any objection to all of the development that's going on the outer ring of Sunnyside, because that was what we were told. If we didn't fight that we would be okay on the inner side of Sunnyside, and that's not what we're getting if this subdivision comes in. And inside this Sunnyside Task Force report, there's also a map that lays out the densities that's supposed to be put into certain areas of Sunnyside. So I would just ask you 2 things. Please drive out there sometime. It's a nice ride. And secondly, look through the task force report and look at that map and decide if what they're asking for goes along with what was agreed to in 2004. Thank you.
Do you have an address for that task force report?
It is in the Lake County Comprehensive Plan.
Okay.
And I was looking through it because it's down kind of in the attachments where it talks about, I think they did an area for Pixiola, and then they did an area for Sunnyside. And this is what was agreed to with the city of Leesburg. They were the ones that worked with it as well. So please just look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll add, you asked where to look for it. It was approved by the city commission also. It is a city ordinance, so it should be in this.
We have a gentleman that wants to get back up again. Sir, you've got 2 minutes.
What I was concerned about too is the longer vehicles that make those corners, such as school buses carrying kids. Those school buses on those corners, especially that first one. Now, I don't know how they're going to clear it to build the houses, but that first curve will be the 3rd curve after me, which would be at the subdivision. Well, it'd be right before the entrance, I believe on the right, to go in the big part of it.
Have you always had this problem?
Just making that curve with a bus, with a concrete truck making the corner at the same time ain't going to work.
Have you
That
always
bus is
had
not
this
gonna be able to
problem?
Make that curve and stay on it. It's
Have
gonna
you always had this problem?
Yes. Oh, yeah. School buses, the one in the curve at my
Who did you
town-
contact to try to rectify that?
Well, I mean, you're not going to get them to do anything about the roads.
What? You know that.
The county's not going to do anything about them. They paved that road. Matter of fact, it wasn't.
Well, that was county,
3
wasn't
years
it?
ago, they paved it.
That was county, wasn't it?
It's county, yes, sir, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, it's county. Oh, yeah, that's county owned. Or county maintained, I should say. Yeah, but anyway, those curves, you start getting a school bus and that third curve, well, any of them after, well, even mine, you get a bus, a long equipment, a long truck, and another one trying to go around this corner. Somebody's going to have to give way, and they're going to have to get, well, like I do, I get off the road and get on citizens' property so they can go around me when I'm pulling a trailer.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you. We've got to, sir, are you coming up to the microphone?
Pardon me?
Are you coming up to the microphone? Okay, go ahead, please. 3 minutes.
First of all, I'd like to thank all the commissioners, Mayor, Al, Fred. We appreciate y'all's consideration this evening, very sincerely appreciate it very much. As you've heard tonight, the historical significance of that area has been discussed in great detail for hundreds of years, from Mr. Tucker, Mr. Peters, and of course my family has been out there for 47 years. And again, I'm just asking y'all for your sincere, honest consideration for safety. Ecologically speaking is a really big factor there. And also historically, what we've all brought to you this evening, I hope that y'all would give an awful lot of consideration to and not allow this development to happen. And I'm not sure if I gave you my name. My name is Larry Humes. I'm at 6495 Sunnyside Drive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Okay, we have got to finish the readings here. Now, we've done F, which is the first reading of the 18.5 acres. Would somebody like to introduce G?
I introduce G and recommend it read by title only.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, excuse me, amending the comprehensive plan future land use map of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 18.5 plus minus acres from Lake County Rural to City of Leesburg Estate for property generally located south of U.S. Highway 441 and east of Sunnyside Drive, as legally described in Section 33, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
This is first reading. Is there any discussion from the commissioners? Okay, would somebody introduce H, please?
Introduced and asked to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, rezoning approximately 137.35 acres from City PUD Planned Unit Development and Lake County R1 Rural Residential to City PUD Planned Unit Development to allow for the development of 159 detached single-family units for property generally located south of U.S. Highway 441 and east and west of Sunnyside Drive, parentheses south, as legally described in Sections 29, 32, and 33, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Again, first reading. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to ask before the second reading if staff could send us all a copy of the Sunnyside plan from
Yes.
2002. And then also if Fred could maybe send us your thoughts on some of the issues brought up by the association's council, so we'd have that ahead of the meeting.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Again, first reading. Mr. Miller, are you still back there? When is the second reading? Sometime in October, I would imagine?
This being the first reading and having a large-scale comp plan for the 18 acres, it does have to go to
Florida DEO for 30 days, so it's either going to be second meeting in October or first meeting in November. I forgot to bring that with me, but I do.
Okay, but
if
we've
you'll
got
call
some
my office,
time.
I can make sure that anyone who wants to know.
Okay. Mr. Roebuck just asked for the Sunnyside plan, if you can get that sent out. Also, I read the information, the background information, and I see the Planning Commission denied it, approved it, denied it. So, and realized it went back to 2005. So I think we need some updating on where we stand with the planning and zoning.
Planning Commission recommended denial.
Denial. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Informational reports. City attorney items. City manager.
Nothing.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurley? He must be gone. Commissioner Christian?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Peterson?
Nothing. Nothing tonight.
Mayor Dennison?
Nothing tonight, thank you. Okay. This meeting is ended.